Hello, it's the Coaster Craze, and in my latest ranking video, I'm ranking all 13 roller coasters at my favorite park, Six Flags Great Adventure. So let's get right in with number 13, Roadrunner Railway, which is average Zamperla kiddie coaster, a little bit jolty and not super fun, so it's coming in at the last spot. Number 12, I have Harley Quinn's Crazy Train, formerly Blackbeard's Lost Treasure Train, and this is actually a pretty fun family kiddie coaster, and I love the long train. Sitting in the back can give you a good whip, but overall, the next 11 coasters are just more thrilling and more fun. At number 11, I have Skull Mountain, intimate indoor family coaster, and this one, I found it very short when I rode it. Yes, it's a lot better in the back because they're very long trains, so you'll get more whip that way. But towards the front, it's really not an eventful ride, just does some turns and stuff. So overall, it just wasn't really a standard at all for me, just kind of a bland, a little jerky family coaster. And now I'm at the top 10. Coming in at number 10, Runaway Mine Train, the oldest coaster at the park. This is a classic Aero mine train and one of my favorite mine trains. Because, no, it is not very long, and it literally has one left only. It drops into this great fun helix, as you see right here. It has two great airtime hills, like really pretty solid ejector. It's only got one kind of jarring moment, but I found it okay. And then there's this beautiful scenic turn over the river. That's like the famous Six Flags photo from Great Adventure. Overall, this is just a really fun ride. It has a lot of fun elements, and I really do think that it's impressive that this coaster has some ejector airtime. At number 9, I have Dark Knight, my favorite family coaster in the park, and here's why. Yes, it's just a standard Wild Mouse, but the theming is spectacular. There's a pre-show with the Joker themed to the Dark Knight Christopher Nolan movie, which is awesome. It's heavily themed inside. It's super fun being in the dark and stuff, and it's a fun Wild Mouse. Wild Mouse are fun coasters. You'll get pops of air, and you'll get just a great bunch of hairpin turns in the dark. It's really fun, great theming. I love it. At number 8, I have my least favorite major coaster at the park, Green Lantern, and here's why. So it starts off, it's a stand-up coaster, which is already a bad thing, but there are some good stand-ups. You go into this straight drop, which I really do like because you do get some good airtime on the drop a little bit, and it's a very fun drop. It has great speed and height, and you go into a great loop. But then things go downhill from there with a dive loop or an Immelman or something, and then the incline loop just gives you just a ton of headbanging. And the latter part of that ride just has tons of just bad corkscrews and turns, and you just want it to end already. This coaster, it starts out strong but soon gets bad. It's not a rough coaster, it's very smooth, but just by being a stand coaster, you're going to get a ton of headbanging and just really not an enjoyable experience. So whenever I go to Great Adventure, I just skip on riding it. At number 7, I have Joker, the park's SNS Free Fly. And originally I was hesitant to ride this because this was my first 4D coaster, and I really just didn't want to get a bad headache after riding it because I hadn't heard the most favorable things about the Free Fly model. But I was quite pleased when I got off, thinking this was a butter smooth coaster, just super fun. It's so short, but it's just a real rush, and it's a very unique feeling on a coaster. So no, it's not going to be in the top 6 of this park because Great Adventure is just that good, but this is a really, really solid backup coaster. That's just a great time. It's very re-rideable. It's not going to be one of your favorite coasters because it's so short, but I'm totally cool with them making more of this model. At number 6, I have Superman Ultimate Flight, which was the first ever flying coaster I had ridden, and I just loved it. First off, it has a pretzel loop, which is superb. They're so intense and so awesome. They're definitely one of my favorite versions. Check out my top 10 versions list. You'll see a bunch of pretzel loops on there. Then it just has a bunch of just great turns. I feel like this is one of the best flying coasters in terms of really just feeling like you're just gliding out there and flying. It's just such a smooth and graceful coaster. I love it for that. No, it's not going to be as good as some of the better, later flying coasters out there like Manta, which is currently my favorite. But it's still a great, great ride. Super re-rideable because there's only 2 inversions and just super, super fun. If you get to go to Great Adventure, definitely ride this. It's so much fun. Now we're at the top 5, and we're starting off with Batman the Ride. So this is a small, short, inverted coaster, and it's one of the original ones. But it is so darn intense. It's awesome. It can probably give you a headache if you don't ride in the cold, but luckily I got the chance to ride it front row when it was 20 degrees, and that was just insane. Feeling the rush of air on your face as you're going through it at night, as you see here. It was just amazing. The inversions are crazy intense, but it's still butter smooth. It's just such a great ride, and it really hints at how B&M back in the 90s, they were just making awesome, intense, compact coasters that I wish they still made today, though their hypers are pretty great, as you'll see later on in this list. At the 4th spot, I have Bizarro, my favorite looping coaster at the park. And this was actually the first B&M floorless coaster, and I think it's a great, great one. It was my favorite up until I rode Kraken, and here's why. It has great speed from the first drop and an awesome hang time on that massive, massive loop. Tons of great elements, 7 inversions, which is a ton. And it's almost butter smooth with only the slightest rattle occasionally. But if you ride in the cold, which I got to do this past April, front row, it's just a superb ride. And it's just really fun. Like, there's so many great elements. It's pretty intense because all these inversions are back to back. And overall, this really just adds a ton of depth to Six Flags Great Adventure because they have so many different types of great, great coasters. We've now arrived at the big three, what Great Adventure is most known for and what really just makes Great Adventure such an elite park. Starting off, number 3 is King the Ka, the tallest roller coaster in the world, biggest drop in the world, fastest coaster in America. This thing is insane. Yes, it's short, but that launch is super awesome. It just gives this crazy out-of-control feeling that I just love. I've only ridden it once, really want to get back on, but sadly it's fairly unreliable in terms of when it operates. But when you do get to ride it, it's just superb. Like, it's very intense just going up that hill, and when you get to the top and that barreling down drop, it's insane because it happens so fast you barely can process it, but it's just such a rush. This is one of the best rushes I've ridden. You get some pop air on that airtime hill right there, and overall this is just such a fun coaster. It's fairly smooth. It has a slight rattle, but that's okay. It is just a really, really awesome rush coaster. It's not that long, but it is thrilling as hell. At number 2, I have Nitro, my favorite hypercoaster I've ever ridden. So originally this was my favorite in the park, actually my favorite coaster ever, because like it has such a great drop. It's fast, it's the longest coaster in the park, crazy long with tons and tons of airtime hills. The most floater airtime I've ever had on a coaster. This awesome first airtime hill that's just so graceful how it goes into like a left bend after the airtime. There's a great horseshoe that also has just a gracefulness. And there's a very intense upward helix also. So it just has a ton of variety of elements. Great drop, especially in the back row. You're going to be flung out of your seat most of the ride, and especially on the drop. It is just insane. It's just such a fun coaster. And eventually I have to hand it to the number 1 coaster on this list for being better. But this coaster packs in a lot. It is just such a fun ride, and it's insanely re-rideable. I've ridden it by far the most of any coasters at Great Adventure, and it's really because of that. Like, it's great in the cold. I've ridden it when it's freezing outside. I've ridden it when it's hot, and it is just an awesome hyper coaster. And at number 1, the coaster that eventually usurped Nitro for the title of best coaster at my favorite park is El Toro, my number 3 overall, my favorite Woody by far I've ever ridden. This coaster, at first when I rode it, I was kind of scared by it. I did like it a lot. That first drop is still my favorite drop I've ever ridden because it's just so darn steep and you don't know when it's going to end because it's like a massive head chopper under the structure. So it just feels like it goes on forever. You get flung out of your seat, especially in the back row. When I rode in the back row like a couple years later after first riding it, I knew this had to be the best in the park because the ejector airtime is so strong with this one. It's insane. You're ripped out of your seat so violently, but I love it. I love it so much, and that drop, again, is just insane. In the back row, you need to ride El Toro in the back. It's smooth wooden coaster. That second half has insane bank turns that are like, feel like they're 90 degrees, just constant. This is like such an intense but superb roller coaster. I have so much praise for this ride, and I'm so glad that it's at Great Adventure. I wish they'd make more intimate prefabs because this is a spectacular wooden coaster and a spectacular roller coaster overall. Thank you for watching my ranking of all 13 roller coasters at Six Flags Great Adventure. I hope you enjoyed this video, so post down in the comments your opinions on the best coasters at Great Adventure. Like and subscribe for more awesome coaster content. And comment also down below any other parks you want me to rank their coasters, any reviews you want me to do, any park reviews you want me to do, anything. Just comment down what videos you want. and I'll try to deliver as best I can. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you guys soon from the Coaster Craze. Bye.